Good morning, everyone. Nice to see you. Thanks for having me. Yeah, thanks. You didn't have a choice, but anyway, I'm here. Maybe you didn't know, so trick or treat or whatever. I don't know. Anyway, sorry. I'm really excited about this. I want to talk about, going to be talking about journaling, and I know for many, I don't write, start off right away, and I totally get that. So, or you may be journaling a lot already, and you may like to write, maybe you don't like to, you don't feel all these kind of things. I hope this kind of invites you to reconsider. Number one, if you've been journaling a lot, I've been working on this one. I've been journaling probably for 30 years, from when I was 2 years old, and a long time. I started cleaning out my office at home, and I thought all of these journals, and I realized how significant that's been in my life. And so I'd like to introduce to you about journaling. So if you're used to it, maybe this is a new kind of practice, a new way of doing journaling also that I've been thinking through, and I've met with a few people who have kind of going through this and giving me their feedback, and I welcome your feedback, but I hope it invites you to think of journaling in a fresh way. And maybe if you're really, I don't write well, I just want to dispel some of that. This isn't about writing an exam or a paper that anybody grades at all. And this is just about, more like a conversation, just writing out a conversation with God. So, we don't think, we don't correct our grammar when we're talking too much. Many people correct mine because I'm a, poor grammar person. But, it's really just free expressing ourselves. And that's what journaling is about. And if you never have, I want to invite you to consider this I try to give some guidelines that I think could help make journaling. Now, the point of journaling to me is cultivating a deeper companionship with Christ. A deeper companionship with Christ, a real faithful relationship where you grow. And to me, a companion is a powerful gift. Someone that's always with you, right alongside of you and for you, loyal and faithful, accepting, speaks kindness with truth and truth with kindness, that's for you all the time. A faithful companion that no matter what, always stays with you and always walks through the journeys of life. Even when we're kind of ignoring them, they don't give up, they don't quit. That's a great companion. And when you have a companion in your life, a person that lives up to some of that, a lot of that and stuff, that's a great gift, And when you find that, and I believe that's exactly what Christ said in John 15, I just want to read that with you just to introduce this. He said, he's talking about the vine. He says, remain in me and I will remain in you. In other words, stick with me and I will always stick with you. I always am. And even if you're not, I am. And he says, this is my commandment, that you love one another just as I have loved you. And then he goes on and says, I'm saying these things so that my joy would be in you and your joy would be full. And he says, no longer do I call you slave or student, but I call you friend, because everything the Father's told me, I'm sharing with you. So the elements of a companion, a deep, meaningful companionship, is really a vulnerable openness of a wholehearted sharing, giving and receiving, sharing from each other. And that's what I find journaling to be for me. And so I tried to, this is kind of new, structuring it this way. I'm not that structured usually. And so this was something I'd like to introduce and nurture, encourage you if it's helpful for you, and consider that. And so so I was taking a shower the other day, last week. And I was just enjoying the water and all that. And take it easy, Nathan. I was at Alwana Park. I had my trunks on and stuff, so don't get too... I was setting this joke up all week thinking about that with him. So anyway, but I was out there, after I swam out at Alamoana, and I swam down, 200 miles, and then I swim back. No, it's just down the length of Alamoana and back. And I love it. I just love being in the ocean. I grew up in the ocean, and I just love being in the ocean physically, mentally, spiritually. And when I go down to the one end and then I float, I learned how to, I really practice the practice of being completely at ease, because if you start thinking and you get too intense, you sink in the water. And the more relaxed you are, you float better. That's the key. And that's a practice to get mind off to being just really, and I always think, God's holding me out there. I was doing it so much, the lifeguards came out and tried to rescue me. They thought I was, anyway. Anyway, I came back. I'm in the shower. Sorry. I'm in the shower, and I hear these two guys talking. One local guy, he's from Waianae, Kainoa, found out his name, and the other guy, Richard, had been here from the mainland for a while, and he had a suitcase and a box, and I don't know if he was living out in the streets or whatever, but he's a nice guy, and they were talking. And first I just hear him, I'm just taking my shower, and and I'm starting to notice they're talking right there, and then, and it seems like they're having a pretty good conversation. The guy, Kainoa, I think about every third or fourth word, he dropped an F-bomb, you know what I mean? And just like, that's really great effing glasses you got. That's really great effing shoes you got. Or, I had a effing good day today. And I said, okay. So that's just how he talks, So I said to him, hey, what the? No, I didn't say that. Sorry. Right? This isn't live, right? Okay, good. You can erase that little part, yeah. Anyway, well, I'm listening a little bit, and they're talking with each other, and it was really kind of cool watching this because they're talking, you think, from two different worlds. Tall, older, haole guy, and this younger, local guy. And then the local guy says, hey, wait a minute. And he goes into his bag, and he says, I got these glasses. They're really good glasses, sunglasses. I don't use them anymore at all. I'd like to give them to you. I said, whoa. And they're wraparounds, and I said, oh, what about me? I didn't say. I was just so touched that here was this guy and giving it to him, and I thought, okay, watching this, and oh no, and he said, no, I'd like for you to have it. I don't use them, and these are really good ones too. I think you'll like it. So the guy taking it, and he put them on, and I said, oh, you look good, man. Good effing good, man. And I said, yeah. So they're talking a little more, and then he looks at me and he said, oh, what, you swam down there? And I said, yeah, I just swam down by that fire lifeguard standing back. He goes, oh, wow, brother, hey, way to go, hey, you. He says, are you Aquaman? And he said, wait, are you Jason Momoa? And I said, man, if I had $1 for every time somebody asked me that, I would owe somebody about $40. I've never been asked that. Anyway, thank you. I don't preach that often, so I have all these jokes built up in me, sorry. Actually, I just finished preaching 4 weeks in a row in 2 different churches, and not at the same time, yeah, 2 different Sundays. Anyway, but anyway, it was so cool. And he said, oh, you swim there? Oh, wow, hey, way to go, man. I think anyway, and I said, yeah. He said, well, you live on this side? I said, no, I live in Kailua. He said, oh, you don't swim out there? And I said, well, so I said, yeah, I used to, and then I had a heart attack out there swimming out the flat ice. Wow, whoa, you, man, way to go, huh? That's effing great, man. He said, you're effing He-Man, and I said, yeah, that's true, but take it easy. Anyway, I said, no, he says, really, what happened? How come you, I said, well, I had a heart attack out there. He said, what? And then, so I told the story. You've heard about, I was swimming out to Flat Island. It's about a quarter mile, I think, out to there. And about 3/4 of the way, one day, I just couldn't breathe, and I was, like suffocating on my way. And Andrew, my middle son, who used to swim with me until he moved to the mainland, I called him over, and anyway, we're closer to the island, got there, and I'm really just spitting up blood and losing breath. I thought I was going to go right out there, and I just felt, well, okay, God. I didn't feel, in my mind, I just felt at peace, but my body was just grasping for air, suffocating. We're sitting there, and I was telling the guy this as quick as possible, and he said, yeah, what happened then? I said, well, we're sitting there, and Flat Island, there's never boats on the island that early in the morning, 6:30, anytime, I'm saying, maybe kayaks, but anyway, there's nobody out there usually. But that particular morning, we're sitting there, and this guy comes up, and he had a 12-foot fishing boat pulled up on shore, which is never seen before. He comes behind us and said, hey, can I give you guys a ride? And then, of course, Andrew and I said, oh, well, we don't want to take you out of your way. But he saw, I'm dying out there. But anyway, he took us to shore. And then I just told him, yeah. And so I was okay. They took me to the hospital, and they did all the tests, and my arteries were all clear, and whatever was there got cleared up, and I'm okay now. He said, oh, man. He said, I don't know if you're into God, but, man, that's a God thing. And I said, yeah, totally. That's why I love that story, because... really, there's nothing about me that was good about this. It's just God is so good. And he said, that's a God thing. I said, yeah. And he said, I got to stop using that word so much. And he said, no, thank you. I love hearing this. And he said, I said, oh, sorry for rambling on with my story. He said, no, more. I love this. You have more? No, he didn't say that. But anyway, I said, no. He said, no, I love this. He said, man, I've been trying to really go closer to God. And this is so encouraging. He said, I love this. And we talked for a little while, and so just a good-hearted, so open guy. He didn't say any more F-bombs after that. We said goodbye, and I had to go, and he had to go. But I'm saying this is because I journaled about this, too. I want to talk about some of the aspects of journaling. It was just such a blessing, something I felt I received from God. This moment to be there, taking a shower, and I stopped singing so they could talk, and all that kind of thing. Anyway, but just being present and receptive and listening. And even the story about you, which many of you heard many times, I still love telling that story to myself, but to others as well, because it's a God story. It's a God story. And I'm so grateful for that. So as we go into this journaling, I just want to there's 4 kind of aspects that I really feel are helpful in journaling. And I love if you decide to do this to get your feedback and stuff over time. First, from the book of James, chapter 1, it says, "Every good and perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of heavenly lights, who does not change like shifting shadows." There's a great consistency of God to bring good gifts into our lives. And constantly, more than I can imagine, more than I even really grasp oftentimes. But when we really begin to slow down and cultivate a heart of receptive listening, man, we see God's pouring out His gifts all the time. And I just want to say about this companionship, God pours into our lives with all kinds of good gifts. There's lots of challenges, a lot of difficult things in life. But as we become more receptive, we begin to see how God is pouring into us consistently, regularly, often. I found with a deeper, and the point is because He's trying to cultivate and nurture a deeper companionship between us and God Himself, with Christ, and vice versa, and then also with others as well. Our relationships are really cultivated by God's relationship with us. So here's a thought I had, is that my requirements of others are managed more fairly, more moderately, more kindly, more compassionately when my companionship with Christ is being developed, experienced, and embraced more vulnerably. The more vulnerably I embrace my companionship with Christ, the more I can be more fair, more compassionate, more caring with others, and cultivate good companionships around me. And so that this part, the first part about this journaling is receiving. And I hope you don't mind if it's okay. 2 years, last year, Anthony, Andrew, and Alex, myself, we decided to go through Bev's things, and her clothes as part of it, all her jewelry box and knickknacks, and her desk and everything. And my wife passed away 3 years ago, this past Easter, for those that might not have known. And she was a wonderful person, great life, lived life. And while we're doing that, Andrew discovered this little journal of Bev's I didn't even know about. And I just read this morning, finally, it made some sense now. But on the front of it, it's just labeled gratitude. And see, I think Bev is a good example of this, but gratitude really nurtures our heart to be more receptive. And when we're more receptive and receiving of what God's giving, we are led into greater gratitude. So sometimes everybody says, "Yeah, you got to be more grateful. Be grateful, grateful." And I agree. But really, gratitude, when you start being grateful, it comes from really humbly recognizing that God loves you, God cares about you, God's pouring into your life with great consistency, and it moves us. He doesn't demand us to be grateful just as a practice to kind of be right or true as a Christian, but out of gratitude. It's really, just such a humbling thing, is recognizing what God has been doing in my life and taking hold and letting it move us to humble thankfulness. And that means and it nurtures us to be more and more open. The more we recognize how God is moving, we become more open. Does that make sense? Yeah. So receiving. Is it okay if I read a couple of her? I earmarked a bunch of them, but I'll just read a couple of them. This started about a year before Bev was diagnosed with cancer. So you could just, the course of her life, and I'm sharing this partly to encourage you that in journaling, these are just little single pages, and she just write part of it. So Bev was a English lit major and a librarian, English teacher, all that and stuff. But her journey was really simple. just a sentence or two, a couple sentences. So when you go into journaling, don't think about, hear all those voices about what you should be saying or how it should be, what you're supposed to say, and just be genuine. And here's Beth's. Here's a couple of them. And this is what she received, what she was grateful for. Gave Maya, who just going to have a birthday pretty soon, be 7 years old. She's the middle grandchild of Anthony's kids. I gave Maya Rose a bath. That was what she's grateful for. Helped Emma potty. Emma's going to turn 10 pretty soon too. But this was back quite a few years ago, 7 years ago, when Emma was just learning to help Dale go potty. Oh no, she didn't say that. Sorry. Sorry. Sorry, Viv. Yeah. Saw friends at Paisley Bay Luau, spoke to Colleen regarding Christmas market, had pizza at Anthony's pizza oven. Anthony bought a pizza oven. Those are the things she took and she received as gifts and she's grateful for. We think, well, wait a minute, why is that? But when we start with what we're grateful, what we receive, let it nurture and cultivate our heart, because these are gifts from God. I think sometimes people just try too hard to be profound or purposeful, or is that spiritual enough? Look, every good gift, anything good that blesses you is from God. And when you take that understanding, then everything and so we start learning and receiving a lot more clearly. Here's another one. I saw a Dunkirk movie with Dale. Got new shoes to heal pain in her foot. Increased InterVarsity donations. Paid property tax. Oh my God. Those are the things that happen, and I think in that, just thankful for the house we had. We have a property tax and not having to pay it, but anyway, she put that. I'll try to just pick out a couple more that. This was at a time when my brother had passed away, and I was flying back and forth to the mainland to clear up his house, 2 houses, and he died really suddenly, just in one day. I talked to him that night he passed, and he didn't have a will. He had taken care of my mom and everybody, but he didn't have so I had to go over, and I was going about once a month, flying back and forth. And so Dale arrived in Antioch where my brother lived, okay, and Anthony will be flying there to help me, and he came. Michelle is supportive, brought home lunch, ordered, anyway, just these things that just meant something to her. Got to see Maya, Emma, and aunts. Michelle made paella for them. Dale gets to go to San Francisco to visit mom and take help with his brother's things. Daisy and Kathy tell me they appreciate and gave condolences to me. Anyway, just these people that touched her lives. And then another day, feeling better after a day of headaches and nausea and fatigue. Thank you for Korean plate. Thank you for almost finishing slideshow. Thank you for warranty car repairs, or for free warranty car repairs. Thank you for dress from Anthropology, and thank you for Anthony going to Antioch to help Dad. And thank you for content and satisfied with less than a full plate lunch. Thank you for a better understanding and bigger compassion for the homeless in Waianae from a video she saw. These are things in her mind. She just openly shared what she received in life. I'll just go to here's one. And she's just being honest. She says, kind of hard to find gratitude in pending surgery, breast removal, just before she had her mastectomy. It's hard to be thankful. This is where I am. Thank you for saving my life, Lord. Thank you for the love of Dale, for our children, Andrew, Alex, for their wives, Michelle, Fanny, for our grandchildren, Ames, which is Emily, Finn, Emma, Maya. This is before Ari was born. For Mom, Herbert, and family of Wellspring. This was on her heart. You were on her heart. And, thank you that we were able to go on a recent trip to Narita for 30 hours in first class. She was in the middle of her cancer chemo treatment, and the doctor said, let's take a few weeks break. And Bev said, can we travel? And he said, well, okay, just go easy. And Alex was working on United, Hawaiian Airlines at the time. Sorry, I don't know why I said United. And so she said, hey, we can travel. So we tried to look around. And because she was pretty weak and all that, we found we could go to Narita, first class, going and on standby with his benefit as parents. And we went, we got there, got in the night, spent the night in a hotel, ate the buffet, and the wonderful buffet in the hotel, half Japanese side, half American side, and ate, and then went to the shopping mall for a little bit, Daiso over there, came back, got on the plane, and came back all in one day. And, and it was just a beautiful time. And I said, we could stay longer. This is perfect. And gave her kind of lifted her spirits up for the next 4-5 weeks of chemo and then radiation. And she remembered that. And then I hold that treasure. Yeah. And then kind of one of the last ones she listed here, recorded in her journal was, it's kind of hard to think about death every day. This was close to when she was passing. Kind of hard. So I just want to, I read all this, really precious to us, and I know to you, is just to encourage you, journaling is wide open. There's no correct way, it's just being genuine. And share your words, share your hearts with a God who loves you and cares for you. So I have, as you're going through this, a couple of questions about what good have I received today, this week, over the years? Journal about it, record it. I don't hardly read any of my journals. I just write and talking things through, and then clarity comes. I hear God speaking, and I go on. I don't go back and read it too much because the temptation is to correct and make it right or whatever. So for some, even as I'm going, I don't worry about spelling or grammar too much. It's just a flow of conversation between the Lord and me. This is my main way of praying, actually, journaling. So I want to encourage you to. But in this one, I would say record, what you received. And my dream would be a year later, as I'm working on this too, is look back in a year and see all the ways, like Bev's, read this from a few years ago now, to record what was I receiving and thankful for. And so this would be one journal I would say, yeah, write it and then come back to it later on and see what you wrote. So what good have I received today? B, what challenges me from receiving? Because I believe that at the heart of our development and a good, deep companionship with Christ is learning how to receive. Many of us said, we receive Christ, and then from there on, we kind of start living our lives serving God, doing for God, almost like we're trying to pay something back. And in some ways, there's a theology, Christ died on the cross for our sins, which is true, absolutely. But then it's almost like now you owe Him, to serve Him. And Christ did that to free us from that kind of slavery, and in order so that we're responding from our hearts to serve and to give and pour out, because we receive over and over deeply the forgiveness, but the healing power of the cross in Christ. Anyway, so what challenges me from receiving? Not feeling worthy, control, afraid to be vulnerable, all those kind of things can kind of work in our lives. And that we're hesitant. We don't want to, to really receive, you also become vulnerable. You got to be open. And in a way, in a relationship, with any relationship, when we're vulnerable and open, we're also vulnerable to being hurt, but we're also vulnerable to being loved and healed and very deeply too. And so journal about that if you know. I have a hard time receiving. I can't think of anything. And so write about that. Why is it hard for me to receive and think of anything? And then see, what am I learning from Christ, about myself and others from learning to receive? What am I learning about that? I can tell you, for me, I'm just learning how to be, that being humble and open is everything to have a deeper companionship with Christ and with people. I'm learning where are my blocks, and I grew up in a family that had lots going on. But I know that when I feel a little bit hurt, I tend to want to pull away. I don't tend to go to attack. I tend to pull away. And I'm realizing that's limits, God, if I don't stay with it and face all that. So anyway, that's just number one. Do we got time for 3 more? That's just the introduction. It goes faster after that. Okay, sorry. Number 2 is remembering. And by the way, there's 4 R's here. I don't know. Somehow my brain, once I get on a letter, it just sticks. But anyway, 4 hours, remembering. And remembering, even when we go to communion, Jesus says, do this in remembrance of me. And the word remembrance isn't just pointing back to a point in history. Oh yeah, I remember, when that happened. Remembering to Christ is about reliving. Every time we come to communion, we're not just thinking about what did happen, we're really welcoming him to work in us in this time and reliving the power of Christ and experience of Christ in our lives. And so remembering is about reliving, and so going over our past and really reliving into it. Some of it's really painful and it's going to be difficult to go, but if it's still with us in a pain, or we're at a block of forgiveness or acceptance of somebody else or even ourselves, or even guilt, shame and all those things, there's a point God will lead us to go remember and reliving into that so that he can heal it and release us. And if we're still guarding it and blocking it and not refusing to remember and live into it, it remains with us. Remember he told the disciples, if you forgive, they'll be forgiven. If you retain forgiveness, unforgiveness will be retained. And he wasn't saying you have power. He's just saying, if we don't open our hearts to receive forgiveness and give forgiveness, we're stuck. That's basically what I think he was saying there. But remembering to relive is really powerful. And this passage is from Luke 24, by the way, that Pastor Rebecca Dave gave 2 weeks ago a wonderful message about this passage. I was going to do that whole passage, and then I went back and listened the last 2 weeks, and I realized, that's the same passage. So I'll go to John 21. And, Pastor Rebecca did last week, so this is a kind of Wednesday. Rebecca said, yeah, that's okay. You could do it again. It just, and so I listened to those messages. Oh my God. So I kind of shifted, same points, but anyway. But those messages are so good. So in that passage, Luke 24, they talk about, they asked each other, they remember these two men were walking along on the road to Emmaus, and Jesus came alongside, and he listened, and he asked, what are you talking about? And they said, well, you don't know. And he said, and he said, what things? And they explained, and then he poured into their lives. And then remember, they went home. They're going to go in. They were walking out of Jerusalem, leaving disheartened, down, depressed, discouraged. They were go into their home, and Jesus was making like he's going to go on. And they invited him in, then they broke bread, and then he was gone. But what was powerful is that then after they're sitting in it for a while, they began to remember and relive into that time with Jesus. And they said, and then it occurred to them finally, like, hey, remember how our hearts burned and moved in us as Jesus was talking through the Word again and reminding us. See, this is the power about remembering. We might not get it in the moment, but I'm a little slow, and God seems to be okay with that. That I'll have a powerful experience, but it's later on it begins to really speak to me. And I start thinking about that again. What was that about? And remember hearing these whispers from God and from the Word, and all of a sudden it really starts to stir and change me. And remember those men, as they remembered, and they said, hey, remember how that stirred in us? Wow, we really experienced Christ there now. And they're kind of reliving it as over time, after a while, after the time he had left already. And then they got up and went back into Jerusalem. They were leaving, and now they went back to join into the work and the mission of God. And so powerful things happen when we remember. Some of you know, about a year and a half ago, I went on the Camino de Santiago. It's a walk from Paris all the way down to the coast of Spain, to the big cathedral, and then onto the coast. I didn't walk all that. It's like a 2-month walk. And so I just flew from one. No, I didn't. But Bev and I talked about doing that. And then as her health started declining, so she found a tour that was part bus, stopping at some powerful places on the way. And then also some days, 3 or 4 days, 5 days of walking out for the whole day on the trail there, the walk. And it's a beautiful thing through the countryside. And really the whole thing is set up. 1 million people have been on that, I think nearly a year. Every year, tons of people go, and they're in search or openness, and I just found it's a great time. It had been about a year and a half after Bev had passed, and I was able just to go and walk, and I spent most of it on my own. We had a group of about 15, and I would pull away on the walks. I was always walking the back, and even the tour leader said, I know this time you reflecting. And I said, yeah. He said, that's good. We'll go ahead. Just, stay where you can see us, don't get lost and so on. And I said, yeah, no, thanks. And then he stayed, and he's talking for a while, and he said, I know you want to just be quiet and reflect on your own. And he's talking to me. I said, yeah, I'd like that. And so he finally, I'll go. And so he went ahead. But it was such a great time because in the process, and I remember one of the days we're out in the countryside between France and Spain, and it's just farmland, and it's wide open country, really quiet, peaceful, nobody around hardly. And I don't know, it came really heavy on me in that passage. If you want to follow me, take up your cross and follow me. What good is it if you hold your life, gain the whole world, but lose your soul? Give yourself to me, and you will find yourself. And that was on my mind. And as I was walking, I just found myself kind of like the guys of Emmaus. I was just down, and I was just remembering my failures, my flaws. And I was thinking about Bev. I wish I'd been more attentive. I'd been listened more. And we experienced a good life and a good relationship. But I was aware of my shortcomings too. And it was just weighing on me. And with my sons and the church, and kind of just wish I had done more, been better, more attentive, attuned. And it's just kind of weighing on me. And then I heard God speak while I was walking. And I say this lightly and gently. It's just like a whisper, but it's just so clear as I was there. And says, yes. I said, but you're carrying your own cross, but let it go. Look to the cross of Christ. Look up and see him, because he came. And on his cross, all's forgiven and healed. And it's the passageway to a new life. And he said, look up. I'm walking, and he says, look up. I'm out in the middle of the country. And then, could you show that picture? This is out in the country. This is what I saw right there in that moment. Look at it. In the sky, here was this cross. I'm not sure how that happened. Either two planes just missed each other or something. I don't know. Either way, thank God. I didn't ponder any time. As soon as I looked up, I just cried. And literally he said, I hadn't seen it until I was walking. I wasn't looking at the sky at all, and said, look up, and then I saw this. God always finds a way, and he says, if you are open, receiving, remembering, reliving, I will bring you life and hope and change and encouragement by the cross. That's what the cross was for. That's what resurrection was to say, new life, all's forgiven. Oh, let me heal you. He can't do that unless we're receptive. And then, because he's always wanting to give good gifts that heal our lives. And so this was just amazing. I think that, the way I look at it is that God says, now here's a good example, I'm talking about me, somebody who's stumbling his way through life, so we can show him, if it can happen with him, it can happen with anybody. Because I just feel like these are things I love telling these stories because I had absolutely zero control over this, and this is God doing his thing. And that's how he is. That's how he is. And what memories bring me deep joy and encouragement? Savor those deep joys and encouragement. Oh, I just love that, And I just went over to see Anthony and the granddaughters Saturday, and I hadn't seen them for a few weeks. I always think, wow, will they still remember me? They always do. But my mind is Emma's going to turn 10, Maya's going to turn 7, and Ari is 4 years old. And I just barely got out of the truck. Grandpa! There's Ari running out, giving me a big hug. Then Maya, hey, Grandpa! And then Emma, and I thought, man, there's the love of Christ, free, easy, never forgets. Those are things that it just lifts me and gives me great joy and encouragement. So memories, hold those, savor those. I love telling that. I love holding it and journaling on that. What might God want me to learn from specific memories? That's really important to have a memory. I'm not quite sure what to make of it. We'll explore it. And what is it God... We can explore it and, it's so painful and I hate that person or this or that or I was hurt or whatever. Like me, just on that road. And he says, I want you to learn something from this. And one is, let it go. For me, that was, look to Christ. See these things through the love and light of Christ. And then the third one, what memories might God want to help me release with peace? If he brings a memory up, it's not to punish, not to condemn, not to convince what a slug you are. I've been through all that, but he's really wanting to help us release. And even a doctor can't really help if we don't let him know what's happening. My dad was like that. He's suffering and struggling before he passed away. And he'd go to the doctor, and the doctor said, how you doing? Oh, I'm fine. Really good. I'm okay. Well, why are you here? Well, just they made me come. I don't really need to be at the doctor, but I said, Dad, you got to just tell him, you're having a hard time walking, breathing, all these, and he had a bad heart. And when he began to be open about it, the doctor could help as much as they could help. And I learned from that. And I hold that memory because I can be like that as well. And God, when he brings a memory up, it's really to help us find peace through honesty and genuineness and his healing love. So remembering is a second part. Okay. And then the third part, the journal about how you are redeeming. Finding the good God is giving from my life experiences. How is he redeeming those challenges in your life? What you received, what you remember, and God's bringing good out of that. He always is. He's always going to bring some good. It might not change the person that's so gnarly around your life you wish would change. He's really working at changing us. But he'll always bring some good out of the worst of things. He invites and works in our lives in such a manner that brings some redeeming really good out of that. The worst thing in my life was when Bev passed away, of course. But she died very peacefully, but there's no denying that's a painful, it's just that life ends physically, She's still with me in my heart and my mind. I've come to a lot of peace with that. I'm learning to live life and by the things we experience and going on in God's life. But where I'm reminded of pretty regularly is the mortuaries call me to ask for some funerals, especially families that are having difficulties. And and I'm glad to. For a year, I just hardly could do that. But I'm different. I recognize I'm different. There's a compassion. I always cared about the families going through, but now I really feel with them. And when I meet with them, usually for an hour or two to just go over, talk about the order, but really get about the person, where they are and stuff, I just find myself really moved. And sometimes they say, they'll ask something, and I'll share about my wife, and it just opens up this whole door about compassion. And out of the worst thing, God has cultivated something really good that's helpful. I had not this yesterday, but this Saturday before, a young man, 25, who I knew really well for many years and met with him a few times over the years. And I knew his dad when his dad was in high school. And his mom and dad, I married them and known them all the years. I know the larger family really well. And he had struggled with depression and struggles, and he took his life about a month ago and stuff. So we had the funeral last Saturday. And that was really, really sad, painful. And I struggled with that a lot, actually, and because I felt for them and him, and I wish I could have been more there, but he wrote a beautiful goodbye note of saying, this is something I needed to do. I felt, I've tried, I love you, don't anybody take this as their fault, or parents or friends and things, and I really love you, and I'm at peace. And so in the funeral, his friends were sharing some of the funniest stories, This guy would oftentimes fut in their face, and stuff like that. And I told him, I said, that's the first time I heard so many stories about futs in people's faces at a funeral. And I was joking with that, totally inappropriate. And I said, well, it was great. We all laughed. And then they would also, though, get to telling these beautiful stories of their love for their friend. And I just found in that, also in my message, and trying to assure them of he's at peace, his struggles are over, pain's over, and also to encourage you, stay in the process and stay open to the people around you that love you. There's a fine line there. But I feel it a whole lot more, and I recognize how God's changed me through for the worst part of my life into something really good and helpful and meaningful. I found more meaningful experiences in funerals with people that don't have much connection to God or church, and yet they're open. And I was at this other funeral, and they said, we don't want too much religious thing, would know that, but they asked me as a pastor that the mortuary set it up, and I talked with them and just tried to be really sensitive and stuff. And the brother, who was kind of before he knew me, was saying, okay, we're going to do this, don't go too long or anything. And I said, well, good luck with that. No, I didn't say that, but I'm thinking that in my mind. Okay, yeah, okay. But what was beautiful was that he was pretty close going into it, but at the end, He said, what religion are you? And I said, well, Christian, Protestant church. It's like this Chinese family. And I said, I pointed out some Chinese Christian churches. And he said, oh. I said, oh, is it okay? And he said, oh, no, that was great. You consoled me in a way I didn't know was possible. He said, thank you. Can I get your card number? He said, I'd like to talk more. It was really helpful. And I think this kind of something changed in me in the last few years. Out of the worst of life, God brought a lot of good that really deep in my soul, I always pray and hope that somehow I'll be able to, God could work through this to bring people closer to Him. And so I just share that with you. These are, so what, in this, as you're journaling, remembering things, what freedom is God developing in me? Is what I ask myself when I'm journaling. What freedom am I learning, gaining? What strength is God developing me? When you go through hard times, and that's Him redeeming, bringing you a freedom, bringing you strength in ways you didn't know you had. And then here's the key. This is the heart of what God does to redeem us. This is what compassion is God developing me. God will always be working to develop compassion in our lives. And if I believe the world's aching to find Christians who are compassionate. Honestly, I don't think it's always so clear lately, maybe a long time. But that's what I know is His heart, is compassion. He's always will be redeeming us through compassion. Okay, then finally, the fourth one, responding. So we remember what we receive, we remember, we're seeing God, we're opening, how is God redeeming? And then how am I responding to all this? How am I responding to what God's doing in my life? He said to Peter, this is the one Pastor Rebecca. Now this is the passage she preached on really well. Yeah, that was a great message. Yeah, and remember Jesus asked. Peter and them went fishing and they brought all that fish in, and beautiful explain about God's care and provision. You had a great line. I'm sorry, I was going to write it. I forgot to. But what was that you said about God provides provisions always? Anyway, God gives. Big ways. Yeah, something like that. Yeah. You said it so beautifully. I should have wrote it down because it was poetic. Yeah. But, so here's dumb Dale way, and then there's a beautiful way. Rebecca says it. But anyway, I just love that story. But then he says to Peter, so he turns, he's done all this loving and welcoming, inviting them to receive so that he could talk to Peter about, remember Peter denied knowing Jesus 3 times right in front of everybody, and a little girl was saying, hey, aren't you with Jesus? And he got all defensive, and they said he was using pretty harsh words and saying, I don't know him at all, and all that stuff. And Peter, he violated himself in his love for Christ. And Jesus understood that. And so he says, Peter, do you love me more than these? Maybe more than the fish, but I think he's really saying more than your failures. That's what I think he's saying. And the things you hold against yourself. Do you love me more than that? And he said, well then good, tend my sheep. And then he says, Peter, again, do you love me? He says, yes, then love my people, love my sheep. And then the third time, and now Peter's kind of upset, like, come on, get off it, leave me alone, kind of thing. But it was to heal him. He brought it into him, right? So that Peter could say every one of those 3 denials, Peter got to say it fresh. I love you. And that hurts a little bit, but it's a hurt that heals. See, that's the difference. Sometimes we hurt people to hurt so that they get off our back and leave us alone, but Jesus never hurts to harm. He hurts to heal. Always. Always. And having the courage and the openness to receive and allow. There's Peter. He had to receive. He had to remember and relive what he did. And then here's Jesus redeeming it. Not only pointing to it and letting them say he loves them, but also then to hear Jesus say, now go care for my people. You have a purpose and a life here. Respond. You're free. And so there he was. Can I tell one more story? Is that all right? Do I have time? Okay. I take that as a yes. No, I think I might have told you a story, so excuse me if I did. But I love telling these stories because I always get something more out of that. This is a story of, in last December, I went on a cruise I just wanted to go on a solitude cruise, and I found one really inexpensively. It left out of Portugal, and had to fly to Portugal, and it was 12 days across the Atlantic Ocean, and we landed in Miami, but on the way we stopped, only a couple stops, 2 or 3, so most of the days were at sea, and I like the ocean, I love that. And I went on there just to have some time alone to rest and really to praying, God, what's this new season for my life? You know, and I was feeling really ready for a fresh start in life and all that, and not all that, but just really listening. And so, when you go on a cruise, you can have a seat by yourself. But they said, can we assign you a table with others? And I said, yeah, okay, I'll be open to that. I felt ready. And so I sat in this table. I think I told you there was 2 couples. One were in their later 40s, and they were both second marriage. They had teenage children that they were leaving with their parents. They were out to have some time alone. Can you imagine that? Parents with teenagers want to be some time alone? Yeah. Anyway, they were there. They were ready just to have time alone and have a fun time on the ship. And this other 2 couple were in their probably later 50s. They were from Russia originally and lived in the United States about 25 years. The wife is a professor, I think in mathematics somewhere back east. And the husband, he does home repairs, big guy, big Russian guy. And I have to be honest, the first couple of days I had to get out of my mind, Russian mafia. Because, he's a big guy. His English wasn't so strong. And here, but in time I got to see him really quickly. Good guy. So let it go, Dale. This isn't, what's that one, Liam Neeson, when he goes chases down the guys that took his daughter? Taken, yeah. Okay, yeah, so I said, don't think about that movie. Don't watch it on the thing, Just being honest. His name was Alex. He sat right next to me. So the first night we're sitting there, we're just kind of getting each other's names, and he comes, and it turns out every night after that, he would bring a glass of cognac. He'd pick up in one of the bars on the way, a nice cognac, and he'd drink that during the meal. And every day he did this. But the first day, not used to him, just getting to know, you just meet, and, I'm thinking, okay, don't get him upset, whatever. Just in my own mind. A big guy, and he plots this cognac sniffer, I think they call them, right? Those kind of glasses, right in front of me. He says, drink. He didn't say, would you like to, or would you? He said, drink. And I said, okay. And I didn't know if I was supposed to drink the whole thing or what, but I thought, I better not. I don't know. What do I do here, So I just took a sip. I set it down back in front of me. I said, oh, yeah, you like it? I said, yeah, that was good. And, when we say you like, do you want to have it? But I said, I don't think he's saying that, so I'll just wait. So I said, yeah, that was really good. And he said, yeah, my drink. And he takes it back, and his wife said, Alex, and his name was Alex, and we kind of all laughed in, but it's really good. And as we talked a little bit, got to know, and they said, oh, are you traveling alone? I said, yeah, you're not married? And I said, well, I'm a widower. My wife passed about 2.5 years ago. And they just had tears. They were just so compassionate, so friendly, warm, and And I saw his heart, and Liam Neeson disappeared from that, and all that pretty quickly did. That's right. Thank you, God, And over the 12 days, we had good conversation. And the second day at dinner, we're talking. He asked, "What do you do?" And I said, "Well, I'm a pastor, kind of semi-retired, doing pastor." And they came from the Russian Orthodox Church, grew up in that. And even then, sometimes it was politically dangerous to go to church and stuff. So they said we didn't really go to church much. And I said, "Well, pastor, because they're thinking pastor in Russian Orthodox wears big hats and dark robes and all this stuff, and I said, well, just Protestant church, Christian, and I'm trying to think how to say it. And they said, oh, kind of like Southern Baptist, and for some that could be really positive, for some that could be really negative. So I said, well, yeah, kind of similar beliefs, maybe sometimes a little softer, or. I said, main thing, just kind of love God and let God love us and help in that. And I was trying to think simple, and he said, oh, okay. And so we're eating a little bit, and he said, Dale, I don't believe. And I said, huh? And he says, yeah, I don't believe, And I said, oh, okay. I said, okay. By now I kind of got friendly with him. Wasn't, mafia anymore. And I said, oh, that's okay. He believes in you. He cares about you. And it could have been a hard moment, a challenge or something. But he goes, like that, and he and Ann, his wife, kind of laughed. And so, we just had, and over the week, I'd see him once in a while out by the pool. He'd call, we'd talk a little bit, and not too much, just some. And each night we'd talk a little more, got to know, and they shared the next couple of weeks really personally about their daughter. They couldn't have a child for a long time, and finally they got pregnant. They had a daughter. She's 35 years old now, and they're crying just so. It says a miracle. So grateful. That was a beautiful thing. Well, anyway, just as we got to going over, it was about the 10th night. And, after the dinner, they have a show at the other end of the boat, and we'd all go our separate ways, go to the show, and then on the way back to my room, they would be at one of the lounges, on the way. And so I saw them, and they'd say, hey, come over. It's just he and his wife and me sitting there, and his wife went to the restroom, and he said, hey, Dale, can I ask you a question? Anything. And he said, how do you do it? And I said, do what? And he said, how do you live without your wife? He said, I don't know how I could do that. And I said, well, yeah, Alex. He said, is that okay? I asked that. And I said, yeah, that's really good. Thank you. And I said, it's hard. It really felt hard. And I said, really, I just felt God's love and patience just with me when I just felt empty and struggle. And over a time, and I said, I had good friends and family from church and other friends that just came around and just walked with me and helped me find my way. It was not easy. And I said, it's been 2.5 years. I've come to some peace with this and finding new life by the love of God and the love of people. And I said, well, I feel it, and there's some days harder than others. And she's always with me, and I always think of her. And yet I'm at peace to begin. And I told him somewhere in a few days before about the heart attack, and I said, that really said, I'm here. God has me here, so live. How to make the most of each day, and that dying's not the worst thing. It's not living. And I said, so God's teaching me that. I'm doing okay. And so that's all. I'm just, you're sitting at a bar, two guys, you don't necessarily look right at each other, so we're kind of looking this way. And then I looked over at him, and he's crying. Big Alex is crying. I said, hey, you mafia guys, you're not supposed to cry like that. I didn't see that, sorry. See, this is the times when Bev would shake her head and say, Dale, just stay on your story, All right, Cheryl? Yeah. Anyway, but I just looked, I was so moved that there he was crying, and just then his wife walks up, and she goes, yeah, and he says, I couldn't live without her. She's a good Russian wife. Now, his wife is, academic, real smart, and she goes, I hate it when Russian men say that, because they have this idea of Russian women very subservient, always serving, doing everything, and he's just there, and I'm there, she's kind of missing the moment, I think, so I said, no, Victoria, I think all he was saying, I don't think he was saying about all that right now, I think he was saying simply that he really loves you and appreciates you and wouldn't know how to live without you. And she goes, oh, and then she looked at him and saw him crying. And then Alex looked at me and said, yeah, what Dale said. So that was helpful. And just one last thing on the last night, our 12th night, at dinner, he says, we all meet at this bar after the show. And he never asks, he just tells us. We say, okay, we'll be there. So we all show up. The other couple was there for a while, and then we just had one last goodbye drink, and then they left. The other couple left, and I stayed with them for a while, and then we're talking just a little bit, and then Alex says, hey, Dale, can I call you when I get home? I said, oh, sure, yeah, here's my number. And he says, yeah, I like to call you, and he says, because there's days sometimes when I just don't know how to stay here. I said, well, and he says, I just want to leave this world. And his wife, says, Alex, don't say that. And he said, no, I just get so down. And he carries a lot inside. And he says, I just feel, I don't know how I can go on and stuff. And his wife said, no, stop saying that. Don't say that. Don't give up. Don't quit. She's, crying and all that right there. And he says, I know. No, I don't want to. That's why I want to be, can I call Dale so I don't just quit? And I was really moved and touched by that. And I've heard from them once or twice. But what I mostly felt was, something changed in him. And while he might not be able to fully yet embrace God's love, a lot of times when we are just present with people, we're the closest encouragement to knowing God that they know, and how we are to be with them and keep encouraging them, listen and love and have compassion for them. It's helping them find their way to more and greater ways, opening their heart to God's love for them. And I just thought something changed in him. So how we change? It changed me also to wherever somebody's at. Don't have to argue with where they're at, what they believe or don't believe. Listen and pour into them. And that's what redeeming to me is, taking and responding to God and loving people out of Christ's own heart. Anyway, long story, but I just want to share that. So this journaling, what I want to encourage you is, if you'd like to, I think we're having sign-ups for small groups, well, if you want to learn how to journal, we'll sign up, we'll meet and work through this a little bit and encourage you, and then as a group can keep going through and do some writing and then come and share with each other or what you're learning, what struggles it is, and encourage each other in the process. But I want to, whether you do it in this group, setting of a group or not, I encourage you to allow the possibilities of journaling in meaningful ways, just from your heart to God's heart and His heart to you through journaling. I feel He speaks through me while I'm journaling very beautifully. And even if you've been journaling, a lot of people learn journaling, which is a really good way, is read a verse, what does it say, what does it mean, how I live that. But sometimes it doesn't cause as much reflection, and that's okay if that's good for you. But I'd like to invite you to another way that really you see a lot of this. It's mostly about what God is doing in you and through you and how you're responding. And so it's really, I believe this could be one avenue to cultivate a deeper companionship with Christ, to experience Christ in more meaningful ways in our lives. And I'm not saying this is the way, but it's a good way I believe in, and want to encourage in helping each other have a deeper companionship with Christ, with others, and with ourselves. I'd like to end, so the questions would be, what new steps in your life are you taking from what you are receiving, remembering, and redeeming? That's a good journaling question. B, what questions do you hold from this process? I still got some questions. I don't know what to think. And what resistance are you coming across in yourself in this process? These are things, just prompts for journaling. And I'd say take your time, take one question, go with it. I wouldn't go through all this, even all four of these in one morning journaling session. I'd take one at a time, and maybe even one just for quite a while. And the receiving one, I would say take your time with, because that's sort of cultivating an openness that most of us are challenged by, in my opinion. Yeah. Okay, can I end with this? Oh, yeah. That's the line. See, wasn't that beautiful?
Because I wrote it down.
That was beautiful. Beauty and the Beast saying the same thing. So, thank you. Thank you for doing it. I just thought that was beautiful. I got to write that down, and I'll write it later. Yeah, thanks. So, can I give you this blessing? You know, on Easter Sunday, I was out at Waialua, where I spoke for 2 weeks. And Easter Sunday, I went out. I left my house at 5:30 in the morning to be there for 6:30 sunrise service out there, and then and it was beautiful, because I'm used to, I live in Windward side, Kailua, so we see the sun just breaking up from the ocean. A lot of times when Alex and Andrew and I would swim at 6:30, but out there, it's got to get up a ways to get up over the mountains and stuff. So when we started the sunrise service, it was dark. And I'm talking, and then, and just at the point when I was sharing a little bit about Bev, because she passed on Easter, I was thinking about her a lot, and how she passed on Easter Sunday. But it was we felt the peace of Christ, the new life in Christ, and her release to a new life, free of cancer and all that. And so while I was speaking, just as I was speaking, it was dark, and then just as I came to a part about Bev, this couple in front, I guess, took this picture. I didn't know. After the service, they said, and they were crying, Sharon, just as you were talking about her, this is what happened, and we took a picture of it, and I wanted to share it with you. Yeah, that one. And I just thought it was beautiful. I don't know if you can see. Here, that's me, by the way, in case you wanted. But see, the sun was just coming up, and then look at this ray that came right across my chest. And I just, when I saw this, I cried too. After the service, he showed me, and I felt like that was God. That was also Bev. It's okay. Be at peace. It's okay. And this passage from Isaiah 61. I love this, and from when I was in high school, somebody gave me a plaque with this on this, and it's come to be just so powerful and meaningful to me. Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord has risen upon you. Bless you, and thank you for letting me be here today. Amen.